Maybe just quickly for those of you, so this is now more business like. That's why I'm standing here. This is a lot easier. But you'll see there's a bit of connection just from the story previously. Um, for those of you that don't know Seed Analytics, we started in 2012. Um, so for the guys from the US, this is a little bit like Yodlee in the States. Okay, so um, we're the biggest utility from a data perspective in Southern Africa and Southern Africa. So we just gone over R500 billion earlier this year. Um, so quite a big milestone for us from a data perspective. So it's a lot of accounts that we pull in, over 350,000 individual IDs, 70 different platforms. That's obviously all the investment platforms, utilities, custodians in South Africa, and then also in Europe, because most advisors take their money north. They don't go east or west if they're in South Africa. So that's we are ISO 27001 certified. I use AWS in South Africa and Dublin. And so the biggest function that we do is obviously the data that we collect, primary investment data, and then the last couple of years also insurance, short-term medical as well. Okay, so the data is the primary function, and then it depends on what you do on top of it, which is quite interesting. So we've got different utilities that run on top of the data. So we provide for brokerages, we provide business intelligence reports or logins for them to kind of view their data in different formats. We've got the same for brokers. They can do the same. And then for the end client, we do two things. One is a branded statement that goes to the clients. So if, for example, clients of RIG, for example, or Seed Investments, the clients receive a consolidated statement across all the investments. Okay. And I'll show you an example of that. All branded. And the nice thing about that, it takes 4 minutes for the advisor to be able to send that out to the clients on a monthly basis. So in terms of engagement. And then the second one is the wall stack stuff that we've built in Canada. We branded as a product under Seed Analytics in South Africa. Okay. And we'll go a bit more in detail with that. So on the left-hand side, I spoke about the data sourcing. What is really interesting just on the IRRs that we do, so we do IRR calcs on each account and each consolidated account. And so my friends at SNNC in the States, they often say that it doesn't happen that often, that to be able to calculate IRR account, net of fees, on a single account, but also for the whole portfolio for the client across different platforms. Okay. That's something I also very often say to the South African advisors. Sorry for the US friends here, but you don't have to stand back from the quality of service you offer. Matt, you might testify as well. I mean, hedge funds in South Africa is some of the best in the world. I've looked at hedge funds in London and in South Africa and the US. Mutual funds obviously as good. Platform administration, very good. Our banks are very good. Top quality, and then advisors as well. Okay, so my 2 cents in this thing. There's no reason for any advisor in South Africa to stand back from your service offering to your clients, thinking that you sit in the southern tip of Africa, that it's second part. It's not. Okay, I just want to say that quickly. In terms of client engagement, we're going to talk about the wall stack and consolidated branded statements. Quick Pulse is something that we're going to launch in the next couple of months. That is to be able to look at about 9 platforms on a daily basis, just to see what happens last night. Okay. Oculus, that is something where you can have a single view of a client across all his investment and insurance products, medical, short-term. Okay. It is something that we partnered with Sanlam. So if you have a Sanlam code, you can get access to that. Okay. And we will take it out to the market broader than that. Leads management. So we run leads management on top of the database. So to be able to see which clients has life insurance and not retirement annuities, and who has its discretionary portfolios and not a, let's say, medical fund, for example. Okay. And then the advisor and advisory book reports, those are the business intelligence reports that we give to each person in the company, depending on their credentials. And then obviously we offer enterprise solutions for the bigger companies. Okay. Coming back to Kingdom Advisors quickly, how this kind of flows in here. I connected with Lorne again, as I said, late last year. And I said to Lorne, since we last spoke 7 years ago, we've done some more work. And the reason that I reached out to him is we've got the wall stack dashboards. What do you think about it? And so he said, well, go through the core material, and then we can look at where the gaps are. Obviously, the dashboards that we created was from, as I've said, from a download I got. So it is what I felt God was doing. But so he said, let's go through the core material and kind of just see what's the gaps, where are the gaps. And I'm going to show you stuff today that we just released this week, which is closing part of that gap. Okay. So part of Kingdom Advisors, there are 5 users of money that you can see on the screen. And so the dashboard that we've done didn't cover, for example, tracking someone's debt. Okay. And that's something we just released this week. So it's an interesting conversation, with a grouping that we had, a lot of conversation when a client sits with debt. What do you tell him? If he has an extra R1 million, do you pay off your debt or do you put it into a discretionary investment account? Which, if you don't know where your income is coming from, you would say put it into an investment account. If you know that the father will look after you, you will probably say to him, pay off your debt. Okay. And it's as simple as that. So those are the 5 uses. We are, on the dashboards, everything we do is more from a values-based discussion with clients. But we see the opportunity to actually have a slider to be able to have the belief discussion. Okay, the faith-based discussion. Because the only thing that then changes in the discussion is God owns it all. Okay. But for the other person is you maybe ask the question, who owns it? Okay, so we do want to go to this space where it is normally values-based, but give the option for the advisor to slide and say, okay, for this client, I'm going to have the values discussion. For this client, I'm going to have the faith-based discussion. Okay, I hope that kind of makes sense. Because we want to push this thing as this Kingdom Advisor framework as far as possible. We want to push the envelope. Okay. And then also what Ron Blue tell us is the 5 principles of money. Spend less than you earn, avoid debt, create margin, okay, emergency fund, be generous, and save long term. Okay. So a lot of the dashboards were more focused in terms of the longer term stuff, insurance, long-term investment. We do make provision for emergency fund, education, all these kind of stuff. Whereas a portion of the Kingdom Advisor things are also more focused on cash flow. Okay. So we'll bring some of those cash flow discussions also in at some point. Okay. Like a very, very rudimentary budget kind of thing. Just to kind of see what percentage of your income last year you've spent on debt, taxes, spending, tithing, and saving. Okay. So this is our aspirational goal. So we want to be the infrastructure of choice for independent kingdom advisors in South Africa, Canada, and the US. And the reason I'm saying that is it's one thing to know the core material. It's something else that's where my brain goes to, systematically implement this. Every client needs to see the values behind kingdom advisors, whether it's a values-based discussion or kingdom discussion. Okay. And so that was also my sense. And Orlando, a lot of people there, a lot of good companies. What I kind of felt was that if the independent guy wants to implement this in his company, there wasn't a utility to help them. Okay, so they had to join one of the bigger firms that incorporate this whole the infrastructure. So the independent guy is still on his own. Okay. And so the first two things are from a kingdom perspective, and the last thing is just from a commercial level, that we are confident that we can increase. I think in South Africa, Emil, you may know better than I, but I think the going rate is about 3 times multiple for a block of business. Personally, I'm pretty confident that with this system we can move it to a 5 times, because we put all the clients onto a new rail where if you think about the client's data is there, the client's goals are there. I've had some discussion with Gus from Ron Blue Institute, for the LLM that they can provide for us. So there's a whole bunch of AI kind of stuff that we're going to roll out to put your clients on auto and give, I want to say, recommendations to the advisor. What's next for the client? Okay. So this is not just an engagement tool. This is a start of a place where you can really look after 500 clients the same way that you can look after 100 clients. Okay. Because you're not going to only sit with the data, but you're going to sit with the planning data. How much the client needs, how much he has, what is the next step? Those are normally the 3 things that people ask for. Just quickly, so when we start building the system, when I read that article, The Future of Money, the guy said, the paper basically kind of said there's a distinction between fast money and slow money. So they went to 1,500 families in the US and the UK and asked a lot of questions. And they basically said, it's either fast money or slow money. Fast money, bank accounts, credit cards, mortgages, credit score, everything that moves quickly. There's a high level of engagement available in the market. There's a lot of apps available, and the engagement is high, and it is pretty simple, those products. The slow money, what we normally deal with, is complex, and it's a low level of engagement, what they saw. And there are a few apps available, and they basically said we need to be better in the industry when it comes to engaging our clients. How do people understand it, their products? So personally, I still have a policy with Liberty. Okay. And I always laugh when I get my once a year statement and I still don't know what I have. Because it says something like a capital enhanced protection or whatever. It's like, how should I know what I have? So this is to a large extent just to kind of help people like me understanding what I have. Okay, so we'll go more into that. So when I read that paper, we said, okay, let's just put a few principles down here. First of all, simplicity is key. Steve Jobs said that if you can't make it simple for people, you haven't thought about the problem properly. Okay, so we try to do as few buttons as possible. Workflow is complicated at the back end. But for the end user, it has to be like super easy. Okay. It's client-centric. So we purposefully went for the first 3 years, we didn't ask any advisor question because you guys will just lead me down a rabbit hole. Okay. So we just spent 3 years with clients. We showed them wireframes and basically just said to them, what do you see? They gave us feedback and we've changed it, went back to them, went to other families, different kind of things until after 3 years we settled it. Okay. So I think the clients are fine in terms of, what we show them. I think there's still a bunch of things we can do. But I think that kind of thing is locked down to some extent. So the last 2 years, we got more advisors to give us some feedback. Okay. So, and then also like the statements, everything is branded. Whatever you see today, Seedlytics, it is completely branded. We wanted to make sure that it's currency and tax agnostic. Okay. So any currency of products, you can flip the dashboard into any currency. Tax is sometimes a problem, but to be honest, what I've seen, Canada, Israel, South Africa, the products are to a large extent very similar. Okay, so I don't think tax is too, unless if you go really deep into in terms of the planning, obviously. Okay, but this does allow you to look after families here with kids in Australia, for example, or Canada or UK, whatever, because each of the kids can have their own dashboards in their own currency. Okay. So that money transfer of wealth, that's possible. Each person in the family can have their own dashboard, but let's call it the CFO of the family can decide who can see what. Okay. And then we want to make sure it's product agnostic. So it's insurance investments, private and group. Okay, that you can bring in. So our data feeds bring in all the stuff that the advisor is the manager on. Okay, so obviously if a client has a group retirement fund, that is something that you will have to put manually in for now. Okay. Whereas all the stuff that's linked to the advisor, that comes in automatically. Okay. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to get to that question a little bit later. Okay, so who of you know Profile Me? Do you guys know them? Using them? Not really? Okay, so where's my phone? Nick, is my phone there? Okay, so we've just integrated with Profile Me. I think it's a great marketing app kind of thing for you. So I'm just going to, and we just kind of integrated with them. So what happens here is that you're going to go to your phone. Well, let me put it this way. It is not an app. It looks like an app. It's a web app. It's on your phone. So if you can imagine your own company's brand on there, okay, this is something that you give to your clients. I've got it's like an NFC on my phone. If someone wants to get my details, I just tap on their phone and they get this profile. Okay, very useful. So they're in with most of the corporates in South Africa. So you click on it and you can see your profile. That's Rizan, the owner of the company. And so basically what it is, you can put any of your details on your email address, phone number, any tools, what my clients say. It's like a small website, okay, on the client's phone. Okay, so what we've done with them, there are 2 buttons that we add to that profile for each advisor that's on the phone of the client, is to create your dashboard. That's our onboarding process. It takes 7 minutes to onboard a client, and then sign into your dashboard, and then basically the client is able to sign into his Wallstack dashboard. Okay. Don't know why it takes so long. I think it's the internet. Okay. So when the client signs in, the client will see something like this. Okay. There is a As I've said, there's a 7-minute process for that. I actually think, yeah. So the client will sign in. I'm logged in as the advisor in this console, okay? But if the client logs in, he will see exactly the same, except for one or two things. We do lock down a few things that we think the client is not supposed to change, okay? We do put on the advisor's button at the top here, speak to an expert. And right at the top, if the client wants to speak to the advisor, click on that, book a meeting, Bob's your uncle. Okay. So I will just take you quickly through what this all means. On the right-hand side, we have a vault. Okay, so this is very good for the advisor to upload encrypted documents for the client for the advisor, but obviously from a estate readiness perspective, very useful. Husband and wife pass away, who gets access to the vault? Okay, so we will build a process in where a email is sent to the executor on a 6-monthly basis. Ping the executor and say, remember to phone Henny at RIG if this couple pass away. I hear stories where there's a vault and both parents pass away and the bank is not allowed to share the data with the executor. Okay, no use for the vault. Also, the statement that we produce in Seed comes through then automatically in here on a monthly basis. So if the client clicks on that, now I thought so. If the client clicks on that, he will be able to download the statement. Okay, I'll find it somewhere else. So all the important documents go in here. The family structure is set up. I want to say the tombstone information, name, surname, address, phone number, email address, everything is in there. Accounts, all the insurance policies for the client. Okay, so at the moment, manually, but we have the data feed and we're just busy building the data feed between the two systems. Okay, it takes you, I'm not going to do it. It takes you really 3 minutes to add someone's policy in here. So this is for both for group and for individuals. So any policy, that is the only data points that we want to capture because that's the most important ones. Who's the insured? And then to which goal it's linked to. Okay. So for any insurance policy, we want to make sure it's linked to the right goal for the client. Okay. The same thing for the investment accounts. Where you see Seed at the back behind, that's where the data comes in automatically from the Seed database. And then each of these accounts can then be linked. Ownership is there, who owns the product, and to which goal it's linked to. Okay, so we think it's super useful to be able to share then that one account if you want to multiple goals. And that helps you determine in terms of investment strategy for that, whether it has to be invested aggressively or more conservatively, whatever. Okay. So the main thing here is to really help put context for the client, what products they have in the first place. And then the second place is, why do I have the product again? Okay, because we link for the client into the right goal. Okay. And then something we just, as I've said, this is the first thing that we've aligned very closely with Kingdom Advisors on debt side. So you can bring in any debt, for example. So if there's an ABSA mortgage, what is the monthly payment, the interest rate, who's the lender, the account number, and then also you link this to a goal of the client. Okay. So what then really happens on the front end for the end client when they log in, the client can see all their a plan for retirement, but let's say lifestyle planning. Okay, plan for retirement. So basically, we show the high-level information for the client. So it's goal-based. We ask a couple of important questions here. This thing is never going to be correct because life changes, assumptions change. your assumptions from the company we take in. And so with the onboarding of the client, we have mapped it out, the onboarding, that we only ask the 18 most important questions. We don't go to the extent of 80 questions because actuarially it doesn't move the needle. Okay. So when either you onboard a client or the client onboards himself, we bring up a new other question, however he answers the previous question. Okay. So it's really just want to make sure we don't waste time for the client, but we onboard them as quickly as possible. So very quickly, we do the calcs at the top. So this guy needs 16 million rand for his goal. And then we link, obviously, all the accounts to that's needed. And then we finished off with a very nice UX at the bottom, how much he needs, how much we think he will have in the shortfall, how much extra they need to save, and put it into layman terms, what it means. Okay. So most people should be able to follow the maths around that. Okay. So plan for retirement, we create for a client out of the box when someone onboards themselves. We also create home deposit goal out of the box, education and emergency fund. Back to the Kingdom Advisor thing, the emergency fund out of the box for the clients. If they don't have a home, if they have kids, we create an education goal, emergency fund always. Okay. And then you can add any other goal in here. So in this, for example, a giving goal, and you can link a donor advised fund to that, for example. Okay. So I sit with a family where they've specifically have a giving fund, and we're going to set up a donor advised fund, and then you link the donor advised fund specifically to that goal. Okay. But you can create multiple other goals in here for the client. Debt management, so very excited about this one. So the best way that we thought we can show this to the client is how many years it will take to be debt-free. Okay, so but we do, it's like a waterfall structure. It's like if they have the two debts, vehicle and mortgage, for example, we'll just take the longest 6 years and 5 months. Okay, because we assume the guy is going to pay off the car simultaneously with the mortgage. So what we do here is we capture the original mortgage amount, and then the client's outstanding mortgage. Okay, so this is another part. So the bank accounts and mortgages will probably integrate with Yodlee to bring those accounts in automatically for the client. Okay. But this at least gives the client a good sense when you check in with a client, what is the outstanding mortgage? Okay, outstanding debt. And so you'll see a percentage on the left-hand side. This is something that we've learned from Discovery. Okay. They're probably the only good company in South Africa to help people, to understand stuff. I don't always agree with the products, but they're pretty good in terms of the engagement with clients. And so the 62%, that's your single score that we talk about to clients. This is your financial wellness score. And this is the score that you want to always talk to the clients. 62, the guy says, I've got extra 500 Rand per month to do. You then sit with the client and ask them, where do they want to put the money? Okay. So when I work with clients, I show them a dashboard. They see the score, and then they tell me what they want to do. Okay. So obviously I will put my input in where it's needed, but they have the information. So that's the whole thing here, is we want to help clients understand what they have. Okay. Something like group benefits, for example. I guess less than 1% of the people know what they have. Okay. And so if you want to make sure that you don't overbuy insurance, then bring in the group benefits in here. Okay. So critical illness, we also create out of the box for the client when they onboard themselves if they're younger than 75. All of these ones have a calculator sometimes more complicated, sometimes simple. This is a very simple one, 12 times. The advisor can tell us whether it should be 18 times for all the clients or different for one other client. And then you can see there's a group severe illness and a Sunland policy. Okay. So this guy, David, has got too much insurance and the wife's got nothing. Okay. Life insurance, we always create if there are dependents in the family structure. The calculation also changes whenever, depending on if there are kids or no kids, husband or no husband or spouse. Okay. This calc could be complicated, but it's supposed to be shown pretty easy for clients to understand as A plus B. Okay. And that's the indication how much life insurance you need. And then it gives you then all the policies that you've linked to that. Okay. So very simply, you can add in multiple other ones. If there's a Keyman risk policy, add that in. You can put your own calculation in. You don't have to follow the calcs that we do. Okay. So we didn't design this as a planning tool. It was initially help the client understand what they have and to normalize the information curve between financial advisors and clients, because it was normally positively skewed. Okay. But if we normalize the information curve, the clients have good information to ask the right questions and to take ownership of their plan instead of I'm trusting the advisor. Okay, that's not a good thing to go for. Okay, much rather want the clients to know what they have. So that's life insurance. Disability, we also create out of the box if he is still working and younger than 65. And in South Africa, we've got disability lump sum products, and those we also create out of the box. Okay, so in Canada, we don't create this for clients because we don't have the products behind that. Okay. Then wills and power of attorneys. At the moment, we ask the question, do you have wills and power of attorneys, and when last you've updated them? We do have a estate calculator, but that's in Excel format. We will bring that in at some point. Okay, so, but because we sit with all the market values, that estate calculator is actually pretty simple. You just need book values, and if things are owned by the trust or retirement annuities or primary property, you kind of just leave them out. So it's actually pretty straightforward. Okay. There is a setup tab if you have a client, like, a young client, not a young client, a client that recently onboarded. There's a setup tab, like how-to videos. This also forms part of a drip campaign on your branding that goes out to the clients. And so basically also what we do with this to increase engagement is we send an email out on your behalf once a month, just after we've updated all the accounts for the clients. All the clients receive a very simple email that basically says, Mr. Client, your dashboard's been updated, or your wealth score's been updated because your accounts has been updated. Okay. And so very interestingly, the open rate on those emails are 50%. If you would do the same on a blog, the open rate will also be 50%, but the click-through on the blog is 1 or 2%. Okay. But with this thing, it's 25%. Okay, so 25% of the people log in. That was my gut feel as well. I'm okay if people log in every 3 months, if they see this kind of thing. I think if we bring in the debt, that's more short-term kind of fast money, and I think people will log in a little bit more. Okay, as long as we get the Yodlee information coming in automatically in. Okay, but even in this state, I think it's pretty good. So we do want to bring in more fast money discussions, because that will lead people to log in a little bit more often, not to create the wrong engagement, but to be a little bit top of mind, who the advisor is, how they spend their money, and also when we bring some of the budgeting kind of stuff in, okay, the cash flows. So I don't expect, people to log in every month, but definitely more than, hopefully like every second month. Okay. And so the development that we do, this is all working. We've got clients, we've got advisors on board, but we normally ask going forward for our existing advisors, what do you want to see next? Okay. And that's, for example, was the debt was one where they've asked us to look into. Obviously, it was also driven from our side, from a Kingdom Advisor perspective. Let's put the debt in. But going forward, it's a lot about, what do advisors want to do? You know, so a couple of things that came up is something like a very easy, good workflow on the record of advice, or yeah, we call it record of advice, do we? What do we call it in Canada again? Or something similar. But anyway, so this is also basically taking all the information that's like your normal 6-step process. You can change it if you want to. It takes all the data that's from the dashboard, just plug it in, put it into the document, and add your notes. It doesn't leave the system. The individual gets a notification that the document is there. He says yes, thumbs up, and we lock it down. Okay, so there's no upload, sideways, download, e-signature, those kind of things. Okay, so that's the direction on that. And then this is what we're really excited about, the net worth. So the planning on the whole dashboard is very interesting for the guys, let's say 35 to 55. And then once it becomes closer to 60, those goals on the insurance kind of disappear a little bit. And the focus is more on the investment side. So the direction of thinking here is that it's less about the performance, because that has to happen. So the discussion, we're moving away from performance, but more to goals. Okay. And then on the net worth side, we want to do something like this. Now, I'm very cautious to go this direction, unless if we equip the advisors to have the right discussion with the clients, because we don't want to end up that line to continue into infinity. Okay, so we want to be intentional here. Is we want to ask the client when they activate this button, the net worth button, is to say, what is your goal? What is the end game? And then they will give us that blue line. This one here. So let's say that's $1.5 million, whatever the grand amount is. We'll track it for the client. And then once the client wants to increase it, there's a good discussion. Okay. Why do you want to increase it? Okay. So, which kind of leads me, I had a few discussions with advisors this last week, and to say, this is what we want to do. But, and I just spoke from a values-based discussion, not faith-based. Just say, it probably doesn't make sense for the client to increase his money the whole time. It's probably good if we help the client to put an end game in, because I believe money is a tool, and money has the potential to be an idol. And so I think we can start talking. So Cassie said, sometimes it's good to know who you are, and sometimes it's very good to know who you're not. Okay. So with a values-based discussion, it's a lot easier to tell the people who they're not. Okay. So what I don't think we've got time, but if you can take a photo of this, and maybe just answer this in your own quiet time. This is something from, what I've sensed Ron Blue often do in the material, is he will go through stuff and then he will pause and say, this is what my belief is. I believe the following. Okay. And I think this is a useful tool that you can script for yourself and say, this is my personal belief about money. Money is a tool. Money can't satisfy. Okay. Money can be an idol. And to have those things available, that when you speak to a client about this graph, we need to give them context around this one. Okay. Then you can articulate your belief in that discussion. And what we could also do is actually put your belief system in here, that the client always sees it when they log in, just to remind them. Money can never make you happy. It's just a tool. Otherwise, clients will be fixated around this thing of increasing and increasing and increasing. Okay. So that's the way that we think we can use technology and the Kingdom Advisor mindset to bring the right, because if we really believe the scripture, then it's true. Then it has to work. Okay. And so then we don't have to kind of sidestep it. And I've tested it with 3 advisors this last week, just from a values perspective. It probably makes sense if we say to a client, money is not going to make you happy. We probably need to put a limit in terms of how much. Yeah. The guy says. So everyone internally kind of know it. So we just need to kind of give words for that, and then people will follow. Okay. And I think that is about it. Just for the guys that are with Seed already on the database, so the integration is there. And basically what we do is all the data that we already have comes in. And from here, you send out invites out to clients to onboard themselves. And then I'm very glad that Emil is also here. Emil, they do CRM, so we're not going to do a fully fledged CRM on this one. We'll bring pockets in. We notice that clients would like to see a very simple to-do list. Can you just show me, please, my list of things to do? And can you just remind me what are you supposed to do again? Okay. So that's a very simple to-do list. But in terms of deep CRM workflow, we're going to integrate with Emil's system, and it's going to be a deep integration. So whatever documents go on the vault goes in the CRM, whatever's in CRM goes in here. If you change the email address, it changes that side, all those kind of stuff. Okay. Because we don't want to get to the place where you have to do five phone numbers again in all different systems kind of thing. Okay. So it's actually not that complicated.